Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to Red Hot Talk once again. And as you can see, that Rod has some beauty filter on, so he now looks 20 years younger.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, you get to a point when 20 years doesn't help much. But there we go.
Well, we want to start off with a little bit of a light-hearted jokes, and because I don't know how this conversation that we have today is gonna turn out, eventually, because there are quite a few things we want to go through, and of course you have seen the thumbnail and the title. I know I use OM System and Fujifilm as the taglines in the thumbnail, but obviously we are going to look at the overall market. We have spent the last two chats talking about the camera markets in general, but now we finally have some proper figures to look at, coming up from the Nikkei report from Japan, and this report basically is totaling all the unit sales per year. So they basically compile a chart from different manufacturers, so we can kind of do a little bit of study on it. However, I have to say that these are based on unit sales figures. It does not represent the actual user base, that globally that we currently have. So, for instance, the overall Canon or OM system users percentage is not reflected because some of us may actually hold on to a gear 2 or 3 years already and still not upgrading it. And these figures that we're showing you are the one that they basically sell, in 2023 and 2024. So these are sales figures. But it does give us some indication on what the market is going or where the interests are at this moment in time. So let's have a little look at these numbers. I'm going to have a little bit of a kind of like a spreadsheet showing. I compile a few numbers together, and hopefully, we can go from there. So, Rod, just go back to you. And, we have talked about this in the last couple of chats already about the market is shrinking. However, just looking at the sales number from 2023 to 2024, there actually a growth in sales. Not huge, but there is some growth.
Yeah, well, that's kind of encouraging. I think people's habits have changed. I think more people are using phones and other devices than cameras now. So it's a battle for all the camera makers, not just for OM System, to try to stay relevant in the market where there are many different ways to do the same job, really. And I think in some ways, because almost all content now is consumed digitally,
Yep.
it's kind of taken the emphasis away from resolution and image quality just a little bit, so that if your work displays fine on a phone or a tablet,
Yeah.
or a 4K monitor,
Yeah.
do you need the kind of quality
Yeah.
that you would buy a camera for?
Yeah, of course.
I think expectations have changed.
Yeah, I mean, I would be curious. Obviously, the report of the numbers that we are going to show you in just a moment is based on last year, because obviously this year is not concluded yet. This is still in September, beginning of September. So we won't have a 2025 report, perhaps almost the same time as this year. So like middle of next year, we're going to have all the data for the 2025. So this is obviously still going to be speculations. We're going to talk a little bit about, how we see this year would change or maybe fluctuate to the figures that we have from last year. So let me first show you a numbers that we're going to show you. Not this one, but let's go back to 1 second. I'm just trying to get this one here. Okay, so this is something that we showed you earlier this year. This is from the BCN report, also from Japan, and basically highlighting the top three brands from each of the category. It's also quite interesting just to reflect on that, because in Japan, they separate all these into different categories. They have the digital mirrorless cameras, they have the basically SLR type DSLR, and also fixed lens. So the differences are obviously quite self-explanatory. The mirrorless and the SLR are both interchangeable system, so you can basically change lenses. While the fixed lens are, the likes of X100 and the Ricoh GR. So these are the fixed lens. You can't change optics. You can add attachment to it, but you're not really changing the lens. So these are the differences. And the number we're seeing from that I'm going to show in just a moment, or maybe you've already seen some of the pie charts and online. Those are the total sales figures, including everything, basically. So just bear that in mind. But it's also interesting just to go back on, just referring back to this chat a little bit there, just looking at the digital market, the mirrorless sector, Sony, Canon, and Nikon are the top three. And as you can see, the little small notes there saying that the OM system was top three in 2023, but it's been knocked out from the top three position in 2024. We currently have no idea what 2025 stacks up, but these are the top three. And also you look at the digital SLR category. Canon still taking literally everything, while Nikon coming second. Sony doesn't even exist because, they, apart from the very small amount of DSLR that they produce, they have basically completely went mirrorless. That's why you don't see much of it from the DSLR category, while Ricoh still have a little bit of sales from there. So that's quite interesting, because I don't think that figure is going to change that much. It may actually be increasing a little bit because people are buying less and less DSLR these days. So in terms of that category, you may actually see a dip in both Canon and Nikon, while Ricoh might actually jump up in terms of percentage. Then now the fixed lens category is still interesting because Canon still, having a big number, and also Kodak. And the thing is, from this year, we have already seen a couple of news about Kodak compact camera. The point-and-shoot cameras are selling like hotcakes globally, which surprisingly, the revival of point-and-shoot camera has definitely helped the surge in numbers in sales. So you may actually be surprised that next year, when we look at the 2025 figures, you may actually see Kodak claim number one. That wouldn't be surprising. But Fujifilm, on the other hand, also doing quite well with the X100 line and the X half. Both are proven to be fairly popular cameras. So these two may also continue to propel the sales figure for Fujifilm in the fixed category. So that will be quite interesting to see, exactly how that will stack up. And of course, we're not going to go through the lenses and the digital video camera categories because this is irrelevant to what we're going to talk about today. So before we continue to move on, I would like to hear from you guys as well. How do you feel about the market that we're looking in now? What's your feeling about what's the top three brands that you're thinking about at the moment? In terms of all the brands that you have used before or tried them before, or even just by looking at all the YouTube channel, the videos, and something that you think they're doing good and bad. I just want to hear from you your top three brands that you currently think in 2025, and we can maybe cross-reference some of these brands and that against the figures that we are seeing as well, so we see how relevant they are. So just based on that, Rod, are you surprised with these numbers or the position of these brands?
I'm surprised by a couple of them. Okay. The digital camera's fixed lens. Yeah. How the hell did Canon get to number one? When was the last time Canon launched? Launched a fixed lens compact. I suppose it's the V1? Is that right?
What, the vlog camera?
Vlogging thing, yes.
Yeah.
But then that's kind of a power shot with a new skin, isn't it? So I don't know whether that counts. But I'm surprised how Canon got there. But those power shots, the GX series, have a surprising kind of, I don't know whether it's a cult following, but certainly they have a reputation amongst content creators that is standing in very, very good stead, but they don't seem to be putting a lot of effort into compact cameras. So quite surprised to see them there, to be honest. So the mirrorless market, I'm not completely surprised by that. I do think sometimes that the makers of the top don't necessarily deserve to be there, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But that is interesting. DSLR market, I don't know. I think we might see some odd kind of shifts there, because I'm not saying that DSLR is coming back,
Yeah.
but I think they haven't gone away in a way that everyone assumed they would. And there are still DSLR fans out there. I'm a
Yeah,
DSLR fan.
but how many of them are still producing DSLR, like new DSLRs at the
Oh,
moment?
well, new ones, nobody at all. Nobody at all.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is that with Nikon, for example, the only ones currently actively producing, as far as I can see, are the D850 and the D780.
Yeah.
But they are now very, very, very good value.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Canon, what's Canon doing? I suppose Canon is doing the 5D Mark IV still. That's still going. The 1DX3, that's still going. And I think Canon might be doing a couple of the Rebels. I think the SL3 or the 250D in the UK, that's still going. I think Canon is slightly different to Nikon, because Canon carries on making old cameras, which whereas Nikon tends to drop them. But that's details. I think I'll be interested to see how DSLRs go, but I think our main interest is going to be the mirrorless sector. I would think.
One manufacturer we do know that they're still producing new DSLR is Ricoh or Pentax, and then they still make them. They still make them.
That, I think, is quite telling, because they wouldn't make them if they didn't sell them and they weren't profitable. So I think, in a strange kind of way, everyone assumed that mirrorless cameras would kill DSLRs. No, they've just taken away a lot of the market. But there's still some left. So I'm going to extend that principle to ARM System. Just because ARM System has a small slice of the market, it doesn't mean that it's about to disappear or be overwhelmed. I think it's like the whole Ricoh Pentax thing. It's stabilizing around a smaller set of fans.
Yes, I mean, you can say the same thing about Leica, right? Leica is the same thing. You know, they don't have the 90% of the market. They have even in terms of number, they're very, very small. But they're very high profit because they're very expensive. But like they're not looking at market share, at all. No. And unlike Sony, Nikon, or the top three really, and the Nikon, Canon and Sony. I totally reflect that as well. It's also interesting to highlight that because we just talked about Pentax, because in the annual sales figure we are going to show you in terms of the sales figures. Obviously, when they group everything into Ricoh, but don't forget Ricoh, Pentax are together now. So the figures, I believe, is actually totaling both the Ricoh GR and also their DSLR units. So there is a growth in the sales numbers actually from Pentax Ricoh. So I suspect, like you said, the DSLR market is probably very stable, and they are continuing making them because people are buying them.
That's it. I don't think we're looking at extinction. We're looking just at a rebalancing.
Yes, absolutely. So that is very interesting.
The thing that really struck me about Leica, I don't know whether, Jimmy, you've ever been to the Wetzlar factory in Germany for an event.
Yes, I have.
You have?
Yes.
The astonishing thing is you think they probably sell 3 or 4 Leicas a year at that price. But if you go to this place and you see the fan base in Germany and Europe, there are hundreds of people.
Yeah,
all of them, last time I went, all of them had a lot more money than me. And they're the ones buying Leicas. It's a small market, but it's a very strong one.
I mean, like, if you look at Leica as a business, and I know we're sidetracking a little bit, but it shows the different business model that Leica is operating at the moment. And they are basically continue to butter on the bread, to show the people, the loyal fan base, and exactly what they want and what they need, which is different limited edition, different colorways, and they know that as soon as they pump out a new color or new limited edition, these Leica users, majority of them are collectors, they don't care, like whether it's £15,000 or £20,000, they will snap it up like this. All they need is just to produce 15 units, 20 units, very limited number, and they'll be gone literally in days. Like it'll be crazy to think like that. Who would buy 20 grand camera, right? But there are a lot of people who would do that.
I think that you can get some funny switches in perception in this market.
Yeah.
For a while, when a camera maker is in a declining position, they're considered a bit of a lame duck. Forget them. But then there comes a bit of a tipping point when suddenly people say, we can't lose this brand. It's brilliant. And then you get a kind of reverse reaction where people start sticking up for the underdog. And I think that's what's happened with Pentax and Ricoh. For a long time, people thought these cameras are irrelevant. Stop buying them. They're ridiculous. Then suddenly we reach a point where, no, we need to keep them. These are important. They're different, So I think there's a tipping point.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you very much for joining us. For those who are just arriving, and I'm highlighting some of your comments at the moment, so we can bring them into the conversation in just a moment. So, of course, I'm still going to read them carefully and also bring them into the stream as soon as we can. But we're trying to establish today's chat as a whole, and also allowing some time for people to join us. Because we know that from experience that a lot of people actually join us half an hour into the stream. So it's not exactly the beginning of it. So we're just going to wait, hopefully, until more people joining in, so we can have a nice discussions together. But just while we're doing that, I just saw one comment that I would like to bring it up as well. Is from Fee Sleeping Dog. Very interesting name you have there. Any indication on how used camera sales have impacted these numbers? There are plenty of fantastic cameras from 5 to 10 years old available, above of MPB, eBay, etc. Some of these prices are crazy. As you said already, Rod, some of the used prices on cameras are ridiculously low, and they are still very, very capable cameras. That's for sure.
It's difficult because the new camera makers, even if they had those figures, they would never tell us because it's not in their interest. No. Perhaps we could inquire from MPB and other used camera resellers. What kind of? But I don't think even they will tell us how many they sell. So you're gonna have to guess to a degree. But I think.
And also MPB can only get numbers from their own sales. It doesn't reflect on eBay or all the other markets as well.
And they're not the only ones doing this. But I think what's happened over the past couple of years is that used cameras have become a thing amongst influencers and YouTubers and journalists and commentators. And I think it has kind of increased the demand for used cameras and the interest in used cameras. And I think this is bound to hurt the camera makers because they've been making great cameras for years. They don't particularly want people to realise that the cameras they made 10 years ago are still quite good. They want them to buy the new ones.
Well, I mean that's also kind of in the same way as in the automobile industry. I think in some way, because like as we know, the cars and especially in EVs are getting more and more expensive, and the thing is, that kind of deter a lot of people's intention to buy new cars, and they start looking at the used car market, and they find that a lot of the used car 5-6 years ago are perfectly fine, and in fact very good, and they can have it for half the price, if not less than that. So it's kind of having similar things going with the digital market. The thing is the camera's got to a point that is so good, and since about, I don't know, 7 years ago, to the point that you really don't need more, fundamentally. And then what's the difference between buying a 2025 cameras than a 2020 cameras? Unless you are the one who push it, Racy.
I think your comparison to the car industry is a very interesting one because my wife tends to replace a car fairly often. The car I use is one I like, and it's 13 years old now, and it's a bit like having a 13-year-old camera. I like it, and it's fine. If I could replace it with something I liked more at considerable expense, I might. But at the moment, the expense of doing that is way higher than the benefit I feel I would get. And I wonder if that's going to happen with people and their cameras. They'll
I think
look
so.
at the camera they've got. It's maybe 5 or 10 years old, and look at a new one and
Yep.
say, my old camera's worth $100. The new one costs 2,000. No, I don't think I'll do it.
No, no, exactly, exactly. But just going back to this particular comment here, and when I was doing research for today's topic, I did come across MPB's own blog that they published in their own website. They did actually talk about sales figures on the used market,
Ah,
not in figures term, but they did show like a bar chart, is highlighting the traditional demand from the big three are continuing to go down apparently, and what they call the alternative market or alternatives that's coming from other brands. I don't know. Okay, they only all they ever do just say other. There's no mention about what brand they are. So that could be DJI, Insta. I don't know. They might have grouped them all together as others. Because they did list out all the other brands like Fuji, Olympus, and so all the brands that we're familiar with, and all the others that we are less known or they currently listed on the website are called others, and those are continue to go up in terms of sales. So that will be interesting to find out exactly what the other means.
it would be.
Yeah,
But the used market is so governed by fashion, you just would not believe it. New cameras sell for
yeah,
more or less what they cost to make.
yeah,
Used
yeah,
cameras, it's all about perceived value. So if ever you wanted to buy a used DSLR, do it
yeah,
now because
yeah,
it's stupidly cheap. I think I
yeah,
looked at a Canon EOS 6D, not the Mark II, but the original one,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like a couple of £100, which is absurd for a
yeah,
camera of that
yeah,
quality. And yet, if you want to buy a 10-year-old Fujifilm,
yeah, yeah.
every week it's another $50 more than the week before. So it's fashion. It's fashion.
It is. It totally is. Just James Burke just arrived, and thank you for joining us. So just to reiterate where I got this data from, and these data are public data being published by Nikkei. You can actually Google them, and so it's very easy to find out. Actually, it's already been
So,
published in multiple websites already. So it's not that I'm manufacturing the data or copying from somewhere else.
Jimmy, is that Nikkei?
EI. Yes, that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
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 Just in
Of
case
course.
anyone wants to Google it, yeah.
Yes,
Nikkei, as I would say, yeah.
but they are Japanese websites, so you may have to use Google
Yeah.
Translate to actually find out exactly what they meant by that. But yeah, all the data are there, and a lot of the breakdowns are also there. But what I have done since you asked, I'm going to show you my spreadsheet now. So my spreadsheet basically compiling of the data from 2024, but also interestingly comparing these numbers to 2023's figures, so to give you an idea of the trend of each of the brands, so we can analyze each one of them and to basically have a conversation exactly whether this brand is doing well, this brand is not doing too well, or what sort of thing they have done in this time to reflect those number changes. So of course I have to reiterate once again that these numbers are up to 2024 because we are still in 2025, so we don't have a 2025 figures yet. We won't have it until perhaps the same time next year, which is summertime next year, to get the 2025 figures. So for those who may be wondering that, it's all doomsday for those who are not performing well, you never know, right? 2025, there are a lot of changes, a lot of new cameras coming out, so things may change a little bit by the time we see the figures next year. So it will be quite interesting to see it and find out exactly what's going on. So without further ado, let's go on to the spreadsheet I want to show you guys. So let's go on to this. Right, hopefully you guys can see this. So I have kind of compiled them into columns, basically very similar. I don't list out every single brand because I think a lot of these brands, perhaps the sales figures are simply too small to be counted as a percentage. Things like Leica and Sigma, for instance, they both also produce cameras, but they are probably very, very small by comparison, so it's not going to be included in here. So this is, once again, the numbers are all coming from Nikkei, the publishing. So the 2024 figures, you can see the top three are being Canon, Sony, and Nikon, and it has been for a number of years. Also coming by fourth is Fujifilm in 2024, and then Panasonic, OM System, and Ricoh Imaging, which counted also with Pentax cameras because they are now together. So like just looking at the numbers, it's always quite interesting that we're looking at these numbers, right, Rod? It's just that 3.5 million just on Canon, and then you got 2.3 from Sony, and we are talking millions of units. Yeah, I know the photography market is big, and even though we said it's shrinking by the year, but then it's still a big number. Thinking of selling wise, and so everyone seems to be still buying cameras every year.
Yeah, yeah, and I think camera makers and camera reviewers are very good at very good at doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but it is true. Every year brings new technologies and improvements that somebody somewhere will need. So I think
Yeah.
we'll see a steady sales of new cameras. But these figures have surprised me in a number of ways.
Yep.
And just outside of talking about OM system for a moment,
Yeah.
I would love to know how Canon has got where it is, because as somebody who reviews and uses camera gear,
Yep.
the success and popularity of Canon gear seems to me disproportionate
Yep.
compared to what it does compared to other brands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sony is about where I would expect Sony to be. I think Nikon should feel hard done by a little bit because the cameras in the gear are good. Panasonic, I'm surprised. I thought they would have a much bigger share. And you've got to think that for all the money Panasonic has sunk into its Lumix S full frame system,
Yep.
Panasonic must be thinking, how do we pull this back?
Yeah.
How do we get any traction at all compared to the others? Because that's a small percentage, and there's a part of me that thinks if they hadn't put so much effort into full frame
Yep.
and had just made a little more effort with MFT,
Yep.
they might be in a better position. Because I think in full frame, they're just kind of fighting a war. It's going to be hard for them to win. But in MFT, there's still a gap there.
Yep.
I think what doesn't help though is that the whole camera audience is fixated on sensor size, and we're never going to get around that, are we?
No, it doesn't look it that way.
No.
although having said that, the Fujifilm has APS-C and medium format, so
Yes.
yes. So that exactly what we're going to talk a little bit about. Maybe dive in a little bit about Fujifilm, because they actually have the biggest gain year on year between 2023 to 2024. It's a whopping 72% increase. So that is a significant increase in numbers. Jumping from 430,000 units to 740,000. That's quite a big jump.
Do you think a lot of that is Instax?
Well, it could be, but then I think the Instax markets were pretty much saturated. I don't think the numbers are, even though it may increase, but I don't think the increase is going to be significant. I think a lot of that could actually coming from a lot of the popular cameras, such as the XM5 and also the other X100 series, which is still in back order at the moment.
you can't buy. Yeah, I think one interesting thing that Fujifilm has done is keep a foot in the low end, the kind of cheaper end of the market. I mean, the XM5, I know it doesn't have stabilization or an EVF, but it's actually affordable. You can get a camera and a lens for 900 UK pounds. I don't know what it is in dollars, $1,000 or so. That's becoming quite rare for a new modern camera in today's market. Yeah. So I mean, I think Fujifilm has done the right thing there. But it's disappointing. Must be disappointing for Nikon, because they've got a whole bunch of APS-C cameras that are pretty good and pretty cheap, and it doesn't seem to be helping them much.
No, I mean, if you look
but
at
then again, they have got a decent
sorry.
share, to be fair. No, carry on. Sorry.
So no, it's okay. I'm actually going to switch to another slide version, because someone did point out that I forgot to highlight the red in the changes. So I'm going to change it to this. So hopefully you guys
Okay.
can see it. So the red is actually slightly better now. So hopefully you guys can see that.
Okay.
Can I actually move this? I'm not sure if I can move that. Doesn't look like I can actually move it. Let's see if we can zoom in. Nope, doesn't do that. Well, okay, right. So I think I'm just going to zoom it in like this. Can everybody see that? Okay, I think it's fine on the screen. It's a little bit off center, but anyway. So so we just look at the first three columns on the left first, because we look at the market shares on the right side. So the unit sales. So obviously, I already said that Fujifilm's got the biggest jump. 72% jump is ridiculous. And if you look at the changes from other manufacturers, are more or less got the kind of 10%, 15% increase, while Canon is actually what surprised me as well. They had the lowest gain, that has just under 5%, while both Sony and Nikon's are over 15% increase. What do you think of that, Rod?
Well, Canon. I'm trying not to offend anyone here. I think Canon doesn't innovate a whole lot with design, does it? It's
No.
just as scale and marketing and market penetration. Just it's sheer inertia of Canon keeps it at the top. I think Nikon must have been helped by the ZFC and the ZF.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
those are interesting cameras and would appeal to a certain market where Canon cameras are all the same essentially.
Yeah,
They're a bit like Canon is a bit like Sony, very practical, very cost effective from a corporate point of view, very predictable. But they don't kind of inspire loyalty, perhaps in the same, or interest in the same way that Fujifilm does or Nikon. So maybe we're seeing a slight shift towards inspiration rather than practicality here. I don't know. I don't think the figures really support any kind of big argument like that. But I think it's interesting. But Fujifilm certainly captures the imagination. Just I think it doesn't help. There must be about 1 million YouTubers telling us how wonderful the film simulations are. That must be a factor. They're not, but people think they are. Sorry.
Perhaps, and of course, I know we always talk about Michael Four Third, and now let's look at the two brands, Panasonic and OM System. Let's first talk a little bit about OM System before we jump onto Panasonic. So we are seeing red here, and don't forget from earlier. If I go back to the other slide that I showed you earlier, let me just go back to that one here. Give me 1 second. Just going back to preview. So looking at this, if you go, I'm going to enlarge it a little bit now. And if you look at the digital mirrorless camera, there's a note saying that OM System was number 3 in terms of sales in Japan in 2023, and in 2024 is knocked out of the top 3, and Nikon has claimed that position. So OM System / Olympus, I know for a fact because I've been with them for a number of years, and they have been top 3 selling for many years, and that hasn't really changed. In fact, they were the top 2 for quite a number of years and slipped down to number 3, but they held that position for long until in 2024. And of course, I can see that right now that in 2024 it won't be in the top 3 either because their share has dropped. So let's go back to the other chat now. Another numbers right here. Go back to this one. So it's just by looking at this one right here. So in terms of year-on-year change, is an 11% dip. The number has dropped from 180,000 units to 160,000 units. I think this is it's a combination of things. First of all, they haven't really released any new cameras, to be quite honest. If you look at since they take over, the OM System take over and carved out from the Olympus brand, they had only the OM1 Mark 1 and the OM1 Mark 2. Of course, they had the OM5, which is a rebranded EM5 Mark 3. So there weren't actually that many models during that time. So it wouldn't surprise me there was a dip because they haven't got anything new apart from the OM1, which is the flagship camera. That may change in 2025 because we have, of course, the OM3 and also the OM5 Mark II. You guys can let me know what you think about these two cameras in the comment section. But for me, I think they're quite exciting. Certainly OM3, in my opinion, there is actually a fantastic camera. It's already got a number of awards for that camera, so it's proven to be quite popular. But it will be quite interesting to see the sales figures for 2025 when this year is over. So I'm looking forward to see the number next year. So there is a little bit of dip, but it's not a surprise to me, because if you look at how many cameras they have generated for that 2 years period, there aren't many, to be honest. And what do you think of that, Rod?
I think so. First of all, I think that the figures we're seeing here probably don't reflect the OM3 and OM1,
No.
2,
Yeah.
and it certainly wouldn't include the OM5, 2, controversial as that camera might be. So I think we may see a change next year.
Yeah.
But I do think that while a lot of people point out that there haven't been many new system cameras, it's Fujifilm has been busy, I agree, but mostly other camera makers are the same. They have such a large number of different form factors and market segments. They can more easily disguise a lack of innovation.
Yep.
Do you see what I mean? So Sony, for example,
sure. Product mode.
So Sony can use the same sensor and processor setup in 3 or 4 distinct camera designs and call them new cameras, whereas OM System doesn't really have that luxury. So I don't know I'm trying to think the most recent Sony release, that would be the FX2.
Yep.
So thinking, this is interesting. This is a new higher resolution cinema camera.
Yeah.
Cheaper than the FX3, more megapixels, etc. But actually, it's a Sony A7 IV from 2021, repackaged as a cinema camera. I'm sure there are more improvements than that. But this is my point, that larger companies like Sony with larger camera ranges are more able to mix and match their designs and technologies to release what appear to be new cameras without really having any drastically new technology. Yeah, and I think it's the same for Canon, same for Nikon, I think.
I believe so. Well, if you look at the guts of a lot of the camera, the inside of the cameras, they're essentially the same as so many models that are out there. They just put a different shell, software. They might have some tweaks to it, enabling new features or rebranded features, and so it just call it something new. But in fact, that features may have already been existed, and it just a little bit of a marketing tweaks there. It's certainly very interesting to see that, and also don't forget it. OM System also, ever since the new company was formed, they are trying to streamline stuff, not trying to complicate stuff. So because they need to make sure the company is profitable, so they make sure that the products are relating to the core strategies and things like that. So in the meantime, it's not going to be as complicated or expansive as some of the bigger brands that's been around for a long time. And in fact, to be quite honest, I think streamlining is actually a good approach, because I think personally, I don't know about you, Rod, is that the likes of Sony and Canon are simply too complicated in terms of product lineup. If you look at the product catalogs, it's just overwhelmingly complex. It's just too many models there. They all do similar things, and they're still selling some of the older models side by side with the newer models. It makes it even more harder to see exactly what's going on with everything.
It does. I mean, I think that. The term in business or marketing is overchoice. Yeah. So there are too many choices, and the natural reaction of anyone faced with too many options is to take none of them in case they choose the wrong one. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to work in a camera shop and have somebody come in and ask me what camera to get, because there would probably be 20 that would be just fine. Narrowing it down wouldn't be very easy.
Even within the same brand, you're probably offering about 6 different options.
Well, yeah. I've heard that Sony's are good. Which one do I buy? Or I've heard that Canons are good. Which one do I buy?
Yeah.
So, for example, with Canon, what do you tell a beginner? You've got how much you want to spend. I don't know. How much do I need to? Oh, well. So you've got the R100, the R50, the R10, the R7, 4 APS-C cameras to start with. Then you've got the EOS RP, R8. Maybe you need the R6 too. It just goes on. It's impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you see how things can go the other way if you introduce too many variations and too many models. Yeah.
I think the people would say, I think people judge a company's success or scale or size according to how many products it has, which is it's not always very helpful. No. So I think it would be nice if Canon and Nikon and Sony did what OM System does. And you say, I want a basic camera that's not too dear but does practically everything. OM5 too. I want something with a bit of style and a bit of retro feel. OM3. I want a professional workhorse that can do anything. OM1 too. It's very difficult. Difficult to offer those answers for somebody looking at a different brand.
Yes.
Because even if you narrow it down to those choices, there are more choices still you have to go through.
Yeah,
if somebody says, "Oh, I'd love a retro Fujifilm," then you say, "Oh no, do you want the XT50? Do you want the XT5? Do you want the X100V, which you can't get? Maybe the XM5?" There are a lot of choices. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, it's always easy to expand and to add, but it's very difficult to trim, to streamline.
Well, it takes a good deal of courage, really.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think in marketing, people feel that if you have a product for every niche, your chances are better. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure that translates into sales.
Yep. Well, I remember the one analogy that someone used to talk to me about OM System was that it's better to fight to survive in a smaller pond and be fat about it, and then trying to survive in a big ocean where there are lots of sharks around.
Well, big fish in a small pond. That particular thing. I think this happened to Fujifilm. Yep. So I think that Fujifilm decided that it had been successful with its traditionally styled cameras with the external dials.
Yeah.
Now it's a time to go mainstream with regular modar, regular design, and start taking on the big boys. But I think that's been a lot tougher for them. Yeah. And I think the retro designs have carried them through, really. So I'm not convinced that the XH2 and the XH2S have been quite as successful as Fujifilm might have hoped, because they lost that uniqueness and suddenly they're in competition with some very serious rivals.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be said for specializing.
Absolutely. I'm also curious. We're going to go into Fujifilm maybe a little bit deeper in just a moment. I think to just define us a little bit about
Jimmy. Sorry, I'll be back in just a moment. Sorry, back in one moment.
So I just, in my opinion, all of you listening right now, you can chip in as well. Your feeling about OM System. I think they've done well. I think the figure is only telling one thing, but hasn't actually tell us about exactly what's happening in the company. And I think they are streamlining and everything. Like what Rod said, it took courage to streamline product lines. Before the OM System existed, Olympus has quite a lot of different cameras. They had the TG, they had the Pen series, not just the Pen series, within Pen series, they have the EPL and they have the EP line, which is the slightly premium line. So 2 lines within the Pen, and of course in the OM line at the time, they have the OM10, the EM10, the EM5, the EM1 series, the 3. So altogether have 5 distinct kind of mirrorless lines, and of course they've got the compact, which is the TG already mentioned. So it's quite complicated. Now they streamline everything to literally just one line, and which is quite interesting to see. So now maybe we move on to the Panasonic now, and so just to recap, just a little bit between the Olympus and Panasonic. These two companies, to me, are basically the godfather of mirrorless technologies as we see today, because they kickstarted the whole idea of removing the mirror box from cameras and restart from scratch. They introduced Micro Four Third and they formed the Micro Four Third Alliance together, and they have each produced their own line of cameras, while Panasonic Lumix were initially focusing purely or more on the video side, and the Olympus at the time would focus on the still side. It's very interesting to see these two companies kind of like started the whole thing, kickstarted the entire revolutions of mirrorless technologies, and somehow 10, 12 years down the line, they are now kind of, together combined is less than 10% of the market.
Well, being first is no guarantee of anything. And I think kind of corporate energy runs out sometimes. And also the window of opportunity isn't infinite. Olympus and Panasonic had the opportunities to do something that nobody else was doing, but that gap was always going to disappear before very long. So they made the best of it while they could. I don't think being first with the tech has given them a head start in any way, really. So I think the opportunity was there and they took it, but I don't think anyone should expect it to last forever.
No.
But at the same time, they don't deserve to disappear.
No, of course
because
not,
they still have a unique proposition, mainly based around size and cost.
Yes,
and the
absolutely.
the MFT, this is something that's only poorly understood, I think, by most people, that it's not just about the size of the camera, it's about the size of the lenses and how much it costs to get lenses of what you would consider good quality. So with MFT, the whole system, camera and lens, is smaller, and you can get better lens quality for the same money, or good quality costs less, however you want to put it. It's a smaller, less expensive system. Of course, it's got disadvantages we all know about, but the advantages, I think, probably don't get talked about enough, particularly in the broader YouTube market, should we say.
Well, certainly, and then there aren't many people really talk about Micro Four Third these days, and which is a bit of a shame, because there are lots on offer. But just going back to the conversation between Panasonic and OM System, it's just a general reflection right here, just based on what we're seeing in this chat, based on the 2024 figures, is that, does anybody think, the same way as I am, and is that, okay, they started the Micro Four Third, or the mirrorless market, they started it. At some point, let's say 4 or 5 years on, when they started this market, wouldn't that actually wise, like retrospectively thinking, that to just move on to full frame at the time? And if they did that, would you think Canon, Nikon, and them lot would still have a chance? Because they started technology, they already have the know-how making mirrorless camera. They just increase the sensor size and start producing it, and the figures might completely change by today.
So you're saying that Panasonic should have or shouldn't have gone full frame? They should.
I'm just saying, thinking out loud. What if they'd done this? Would you think the numbers would be totally different today? If, let's say, both Olympus and Panasonic both have full frame system much earlier than anticipated. Before Canon, Nikon, and Sony kind of went full force with it.
Well, I think, unless I'm mistaken, Panasonic was one of the first with full frame mirrorless. But I don't think the technical advances kept up with what the others were doing. So I think very quickly Canon and Nikon and Sony accelerated past them. That's my impression of how it played out. Because the Lumix S1, the original S1 and S1R, very good cameras, very big, very solid, very professional cameras, but they weren't especially quick or nimble. And I think almost immediately the competition from Canon and Nikon and Sony kind of just swept past.
Yeah. I think
So I think even though Panasonic's Lumix S lineup is not very compelling,
yeah.
it's as I don't want to I don't want to keep being subjective about this, but it's as dull as Sony's cameras without being quite as good. Is that fair? I think it's cheap. The
Yeah.
Lumix S lineup is very very cost effective.
Very
The
competitive. Yes.
S9 is incredible value, and the lenses aren't bad. The Lumix S primes, the f1.8 primes, they're not very dear, but they're very good lenses.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone is going to notice that while they're complaining about the cameras.
Mm.
You've got to think about the system as a whole, haven't you?
Yeah. Of
I think
course.
if I was starting this again, I wouldn't have bought into Canon. I probably would have bought into Lumix because
Right.
because of the lenses.
Yeah. Yeah.
The lenses are just more consistent, more affordable. The AF is quick. The image quality is good, and they're just quite nice to use. Whereas
Yeah.
Canon lenses tend to be all over the place for price and quality. But that's just two brands in particular. I just think Panasonic has been too slow,
Mm.
too slow to move forward.
So,
Um,
obviously, this is about full frame, but when you say too slow,
yeah.
obviously, it's springing to mind that I think too slow in terms of full frame, also
Well,
reflecting on the MFT as well.
it's just stopped with MFT, didn't it?
Yeah.
And that was the awful thing. So the anyone who's got a Lumix GX8 or GX9
Yep.
will miss those quite badly. 'Cause they're nice cameras.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
G9 we miss. The G9 2 is still far too expensive in my opinion.
Yep.
And the GH7 it's a terrific camera, but it's quite expensive. It's a professional buy. It's a niche product.
Yep.
So Panasonic has kind of given up on the kind of consumer level MFT market.
Yeah.
I do like the G97 a lot. That's a great camera for the money, but it's just a token effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
It's
shame that it's just given up, and it shouldn't have done.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly very interesting because for those who may be interested, I'm going to quote a figure, but it's unconfirmed, so
Okay.
don't quote me on that. Is that the apparently the numbers that we're looking back at the chat at the moment, the spreadsheet, the 280,000 sales unit from Panasonic, apparently less than a third of that is from MFT. So
Yeah.
so majority of the
Well, it's because they
sales
don't make any.
actually. Yeah, they didn't make any. So if you look at it, I think there are some numbers suggesting between 80 to 100,000 unit MFT cameras were sold from Panasonic. So that's way less than OM Systems. So when you think OM Systems figures is low, Panasonic's MFT numbers are even lower. So if Panasonic only making MFT cameras today, they will be basically behind OM System, just a little bit better than Ricoh imaging. Yeah, what do you think
I
of
mean,
that?
I'm quite amazed to see that Panasonic's total sales across both formats are only 50% higher than OM Systems. But then maybe these figures don't include the S9. I can't remember when that came out.
That came out last year, I think, so 2024. So it would have included in these numbers.
Yeah. So I mean, that is not good for that's not a good result for Panasonic. It's a shame
No,
because I mean you want all these companies to succeed.
yeah,
Um, but I think the way the prices have fallen on the S9 and the S5 2 and S5 2X, clearly they're having to work very hard to keep selling them,
yeah.
which
If you
is a
look at the
shame. They're decent cameras, but
They are. If you look at this year-on-year change, and it's only about 7.6%, which is among the third lowest compared to the rest of the people apart from OM System. Most Sony, Nikon, and Fuji both have double-digit increase. Actually, if you look at it, Ricoh Imaging also has 16% increase as well. So it's actually pretty low figures coming from Panasonic. I don't know. I mean, like I said already from the last chat that we had, and I always say that Panasonic currently the message in terms of marketing is quite confusing. It's not consistent, and I
It is.
think
No, it's not.
it's a
No.
little bit all over the place at the moment. We don't know exactly what this camera for or what the core market is focusing on. We don't know. OM System, at least
So
they know. We know it's outdoor. We know it's wildlife. We know that's where they're heading. But Panasonic,
yeah.
I don't know. I can't see it. I can't really see a message there.
No, no. I think you make a very good point there. Why would you choose the S5 over the S9 if the S1R Mark II is so good at video? Why are they making the S1R two? Not the S. Sorry, so I'm confused myself. If the S1R2 with its 47 megapixel sensor is so good at video, why is Panasonic also making the Lumix S1 Mark
Yeah,
II? It's almost as if Panasonic's marketing is zoned in on one camera at a time, and
yeah,
they're kind of cannibalizing their own range in a way. I think
yeah. I mean, it's certainly very
it's
strange
it's
because
it's
we yeah. So we know that last year Panasonic did a massive launch for the S9. They literally invited everybody on planet Earth who are in social media, in journalism, to Japan for the S9 launch, and it's an interesting thing to see they throw such a big party because we haven't seen anything like that for such a long time ever since COVID, for a presumably an
no.
entry level camera.
Well, what bothered me about that was that Panasonic is promising a camera like we've never seen before,
Yeah,
and it came out with something we've seen a dozen times before, which is a box with no EVF designed for vlogging.
yeah,
That's not new, really, is it? Let's be fair.
yeah,
So that was disappointing. But yeah, I think Panasonic should have a long hard think about how it markets its cameras. And if Canon's got where it is through marketing, maybe Panasonic needs to copy what Canon's doing. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because I'm sure
yeah,
I'm sure at Panasonic, for everyone who says we need to spend more on marketing, there's going to be
yeah,
somebody else who says we're not selling any, we haven't got the money, let's give up. So, so I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. That's disappointing for Panasonic.
Yeah, absolutely. And now let's look at our last candidate here on the unit sales department is Ricoh Imaging. So between the Ricoh and Pentax together, and we know Ricoh only had one product and one product only, which is the GR line. I know it's got slightly different variations there, but essentially it's the same camera. The Pentax, well, I mean, they have a couple of DSLRs still. One of them is monochrome. I don't know how well they do with the monochrome. I presume it's actually selling quite well because it's quite a niche product. And there aren't many black and white dedicated SLRs, or in fact, black and white only digital cameras out there at the moment.
Well, I mean, Pentax and Ricoh is such a hipster brand now, isn't it? It's perfect for contrarians like me, who reject the mainstream and always looked for the opposite. So I think when I said earlier about tipping point with perception, I think Pentax Ricoh has gone over to the other side, and now
Yeah,
people respect the brand
yeah,
because it does what it does and has no interest in what other people think and do, and
yeah.
people like that. So maybe OM System will do that little
Prevail.
flip and suddenly
Yeah.
become the brand where people think, do you know what? These guys don't care about the rest. I'm going with them because they know what they're doing and what they want to do.
Well, in fact, Olympus slash
But
OM System has always been like
it's
that,
kind
though,
of
isn't
like
it?
it's kind of yeah. But I mean, we were talking about Leica earlier, and that's what Leica
Oh,
does. Leica
yeah,
says, fine, other people can make what they want. This is what we make because this
yeah,
is how cameras should be made, and
yeah,
they convince enough people to spend enough money for that to become a very successful business.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, I think so. And to be quite frank, like if you look at Ricoh on its own, the GR line is now becoming a cult and it's almost like he's got like a very
Yeah,
loyal fan base, and it's a bit like Leica in a way. And
contrarians.
yeah, it
Yeah,
just that the
and
reaction that I got from the latest GR4, is pretty positive, at least from within its own fan base, and then so it's very interesting to
the
see.
more expensive it becomes,
Yes.
the higher its perceived value. Yeah, so I mean, Patrick's made a couple of remarks about the S9, and he's quite right. The S9 is a great camera,
Yeah.
but the issue will always be with full frame cameras
Yeah.
finding lenses of comparable proportions, because
Yeah.
the minute you go for a fast aperture prime, or heaven forbid a zoom,
Yep.
the body shape just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people don't mind it, but I find it quite a difficult balance.
It's definitely interesting. We're going to come back to this pressure in just a moment, because I want to show you a couple of things, because you mentioned about form factor. I think it's a very relevant point. The S9 is a boxy camera, and it hasn't really got a proper grip. I know you can add third-party grips on it, just like any modern camera these days. You can get something third-party to make it a little bit better to hold. But the design-wise, it's never meant to have big, fat lenses on it. It's the same with Leica.
No.
It's the same as some of the rangefinder cameras, for instance. Rangefinder is never supposed to have a big, massive 70 to 200 2.8 zoom. It's not meant to be like that. Even though you can mount one on the X Pro, for instance, you can mount it on, but it won't hold it properly. It's not comfortable to hold because it really hasn't got grip. Even if you look at the smaller camera like the EM5 or the OM5, for instance, it is a small camera. It is. It's better to have a little prime like this than, again, one of these massive zoom lens on it. If you want zoom lenses, big zoom lenses, long tele lenses, you really want a proper grip, bigger camera to hold. Otherwise, you just feel imbalanced. It's just not very comfortable for using long period of time. And that's, truth. And I think that people expect it too much. If they think that, okay, it's interchangeable, you can throw anything to as long as the mount fits, right? It is true. That's the theory, right? But unfortunately, people may have misunderstood the camera when it comes to first seeing it. People got excited about it, and then later when they finally got hold of one, and they say, "Oh, it doesn't hold too well." These 1.4 prime doesn't really fit, just too big and heavy, and I can't mount any zoom lenses on it because I can't hold it properly. Things starting to come up, and people would just say, "Oh, no, it's not really good, isn't it?"
I think at the moment I'm seeing the S9 in the UK at least being bundled with the Lumix 20 to 60 zoom, which is a really good lens, but it's just not a good fit on that camera. So I haven't. The S9 is the one camera I haven't been able to get in for review. I've picked one up and used them, but I haven't been able to get one in for review. But I just don't think zoom lenses sit well on that camera.
No.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
I think the Pancake, I think there's an 18 to 40 which is quite compact. That would work.
They have
but you are limited.
Lens, yes.
You are limited. If you go for full frame, you've got to accept you're going to have some pretty big lenses.
Yeah.
Or some pretty small aperture ones.
You can't get away with that.
But the form factor is an annoyance. I mean, so my EOS R8, one of the selling points is how small and light it is.
Yeah.
But of course, when you actually come to use it, it's just too small. So I had to buy the Canon grip extender before I felt it handled properly. So it seems to me like we're caught in a place where we're being sold cameras that are smaller and lighter than ever, and then we immediately have to go out and buy a grip so that we like using them again.
Well, I did that to my OM3.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because
I've done it with almost all my cameras.
Yeah, I mean, like Patrick obviously had a comment here. By definition, you can see Panasonic was wanting the S9 to be their answer to the X100. I think a lot of manufacturers seeing the X100 as the prime business case study, and how can we make something just like that? When people just can't get enough of that, they want something like that. And is boxy camera the answer to it? Don't forget the S9 hasn't got any EVF while the X100 has. It can operate like a traditional camera. It has the retro appeal, the design appeal. And while the S9 doesn't really. In fact, that's personal only anyway. If anyone feels the same way, please give me a shout as well. I think what they should have done is give me an update of this. This is essentially the Michael Four Third of S9, right? We all know that, and they should have given us an updated version of that, and that is a small camera.
I think the Sigma contemporary lenses primes would go quite well on the S9, but even they are quite heavy. So I think if you wanted your S9 to be like the X100 then you could perhaps get the Sigma 35mm f2 contemporary lens. Well, that's a big chunk of metal, that lens. It's compact, but it's not that compact. No. So it's difficult. I think sometimes a smaller format is always going to be more successful at certain jobs. So if only instead of something like putting all its effort into full frame Lumix S, if only Panasonic had put the GH7 sensor in a little vlogging box.
Yep.
Like everyone else has done, that would have been a different proposition.
Absolutely.
But they decided not to do that.
That's exactly what I meant. Like if they updated this, the GM1 have a more updated Michael Four Third sensor. You don't need really IBIS, as we know that XM5 selling like hotcakes without IBIS. So IBIS is subjective, depending on what you do it. Then for vlogging, of course, IBIS is essential. This is what the XM5 also supposedly aiming at, but it hasn't got IBIS either, just relying on EIS. But imagine this has somehow more or less the GX7 or G9 Mark II spec in this tiny format, which they could potentially do it. They just didn't do it. And imagine, this would have been a camera that everyone would be shouting up and down, because, you got some big spec on a tiny body like this. Even you'd be selling it for £1,000, I think it was still justifiable pricing for everybody to swallow, because it's such a high-tech camera in such a small body. Whether you can handle it properly or not is another thing, but it's something that Michael Four Third was known for, being small and tiny to start with, and this was the pinnacle when it comes to size. It's still today, by definition, it's still the smallest Michael Four Third camera ever.
It's always going to be about the lenses in the end, because even if the body had to be bigger to accommodate the bigger sensor and probably IBIS too, the lenses will always be smaller. And it's the camera and lens combination that you actually have to shoot with. The camera on its own doesn't take pictures.
No. So
but MFT would be better for vlogging, I think, than full frame.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if they spend all that money and effort in developing S9 into something like this, I personally think it will be a bigger success than anything else. And just to show you this, this is my product mode. Like Sony has always say, product mode. It's just a normal CAF with my Michael Four Third camera. So it's not.
We call it autofocus. Sony calls it product mode.
Sony called it product mode, and it's a new camera. It's a new camera. Only had that mode on. It's so funny.
I think it's a bit like Fujifilm having a vlog mode for the XM5. A vlog mode on the mode arms. Really need that.
It's interesting though, funny you mentioned that, because I actually find the vlog mode is all right, and not because it does anything different to the dedicated video mode, but they actually simplify the control on the touchscreen specifically for vloggers. So when you turn on the vlog mode, the screen changes completely. It has big icons, touchscreen icons to change ISO, to change exposure compensation, start and stop recording, just on the screen, just very, very big icon.
That's better.
So they do make it really easy for vloggers, but it's a shame that XM5 doesn't have any IBIS. Otherwise I think it could potentially be even bigger sales than if it has IBIS. Maybe even weather seal. Maybe I'm hoping too much. If they make a pro version of XM5 with weather sealing and proper IBIS, I would get one of those as well.
Maybe Fujifilm has left a deliberate gap in
They
its
do.
lineup for just such a product.
Like I said, I've been so impressed with this 26 megapixel sensor. I wanted to get one with weather sealing, but I can't find any new. Of course, you can get the XT4, which is weather seal using the 26 megapixel, but it has the older focusing engine, so it presumably won't be working as well as the XM5 when it comes to CAF, because the XM5 CAF is pretty astonishing actually. So so I want to find something equivalent that is weather sealed, but currently Fujifilm doesn't make any at all, so which is a bit disappointing.
I just want you just want too much, Jimmy. You just have one camera for the rain, and you need to go one camera for the rain and one for the sun. They'll sort that out. So yeah, I don't know whether now is the time to mention this, but a thought I had, or a question I thought of asking people was, if you did have to swap out from the OM system and Micro Four Thirds, what brand would you swap to?
Oh, big question. So,
If you had to.
well, first of all, mention what you're using right now and what you are going to swap with, and that'll be interesting. So whether you're using Nikon right now and what other brand you're thinking about, or if you just say that I'm happy with my current system, also let us know as well.
I was just thinking OM system. For anyone who's currently using OM system and is worried about the future and thinking, do you know, maybe I need to jump ship, what brand would you jump ship to?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
From OM system. Yeah, I thought about Fujifilm if I had to do that, but I don't know. I'm interested in what other people think, and it all comes down to what you need the camera for, doesn't it?
It is, and I mean, I think like most camera, like we said so many times already, like most cameras that you can buy today, regardless of price, they're all good enough. When I say good enough, I mean that they can all produce really great images. You know, all you need to do is just pair a good lens.
Yeah.
You know, like and the sensor's already good enough.
Yeah.
You know, I just can't see people make bad images from, let's say, beginner level cameras in any brands these days. They're so good. You know, the AF system, you know, whether you say that it's slow compared to the flagship camera, we're only counting milliseconds there, you know. they are fast enough to a majority of the people on a daily basis, you know, for snapping holidays or, you know, photographing kids and here and there, birthday parties.
Well,
they're good. They're really good. They're more than enough.
And I don't think it's necessarily an amateur thing, having less sophisticated cameras. I think for a lot of professional use, you don't need a lot of technologies that are being developed today. If your chosen field is fine art photography or landscapes or travel, you probably don't need very fast AF. You just need something portable, reliable, that will always do what you expect.
Yeah,
it's different requirements for different jobs. So I'm just seeing some of the comments now. Greg Feeler is saying, if I'm system closed shop, I'd keep my gear and stay with it. Not sure that answers the question. I'm going to change your question. Not only do they stop making cameras, they come around and take them away. So you've got to choose something else.
Let's think of it.
It's difficult. It's difficult to replace it. Yeah,
it is. I mean, I think what you said there is completely valid as well. You know, like, you know, even you know, the worst scenario, some of these brands disappear tomorrow completely. Doesn't mean the cameras will disappear too, right? You know, they're still going to be around. They're still going to be like working for many, many years, and there will still be a lot of lenses dotting around.
I think modern cameras are like modern cars. You know, years ago, cars used to rust out in about 5 years. Now they just go on for 10 or 15 or 20, and we take for granted that they won't. Cameras have become a bit like that. So if they stop making your favorite camera brand tomorrow, the cameras you've got now, I'm pretty sure they'll still be working 10 or 15 years from now.
Yeah.
They last too long.
They last too long. Well, I mean, like, in fact, a lot of people always talk about
They last too long.
actuations. You know,
But
the
that's the
shutter
problem for camera
actuation,
makers,
right?
isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. I mean, if you go shopping for a used DSLR, most of them have a quoted shutter life of, say, 200,000 shots.
Yeah.
Nobody ever gets close to that. You won't find many on the used market that even approach that. And if you do, they'll be hammered anyway. They'll just be for spares and repairs anyway. But
to be honest,
I think the longevity.
I prefer. Yes, go on. Sorry.
I was only going to say that the longevity of used cameras now is a problem for camera makers trying to sell new ones, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like many people who are looking at DSLR, for instance, and obviously first thing they consider not only the physical appearance, whether it's been abused or not, but it's also about the actuations or shutter count these days in some of the mirrorless cameras.
Yeah,
you know, they're always often too worried about shutter counts because when they see like something over 20,000, it's like, that's well used. But like,
well,
you think about a lot of the especially professional body, like 400,000 actuation. I mean, calculated numbers, it's merely like a 5% being used.
Yeah, and I think as well that a lot depends on the owner. I've seen cameras with 100,000 actuations without a mark on them.
Yeah,
and I've seen cameras with 10,000 that look as if they've been under a truck. So it depends on the owner.
Yeah, it certainly does.
But yes, I'm glad I asked the question because it is a difficult point. If you couldn't have OM system, it is very difficult to find a replacement that does all the same things.
Yeah.
It actually is.
Paul Anderson actually has an interesting thing here. OM3 now, I will go with the A7C or A7CR because he likes the rangefinder style.
Yeah.
And I don't know how everybody's feel about it. Obviously, rangefinder style is a very specific camera type, as only suitable a specific type of shooting experience. We already just talked about the handling side of it because rangefinder cameras are not supposed to have big grips, and that means that they're not supposed to mount anything big and long in front of it. So, it's fine if you're a travel photographer, fine if you're a street photographer, but, I wouldn't think that, any of these type of cameras would be suitable for, let's say, a safari trip or anything like that. It's not that you can't use them. It's totally fine because it's got the mount, it's got the lens sensor, it's compatible, so you're going to have no problem shooting with it. It's just more to do with the ergonomic, the handling side of it, and how much you do that type of photography. But I personally like rangefinder style cameras because I shoot street and travel a lot. Wildlife is never my genre, so I've never would go against anything rangefinder style. So like I said already many times, if OM system does produce a Pan F again, I will buy it in a heartbeat. I wouldn't skip it. I'll just buy it because I like the original Pan F, and they're going to do another one. Yeah, that will be my go-to. But the OM3, I still think it's a very, very cool camera, and I personally bought one as well, so I like it a lot.
I think myself, the rangefinder style bodies suit smaller cameras and lenses.
Yep.
But bigger cameras, just a little bit better in a DSLR style.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a question of size. But I think if I wanted to use a pro zoom or any kind of big lens, I'd rather have a bigger DSLR style body. But if I've got some nice little compact travel primes, like those f2 Fujinons, for example, and the OM system f1.8 primes, I'd rather have those on a rangefinder body because they just go together.
Yeah.
So I like both for different reasons.
And Chuck L also asked a question: who makes APS-C but not as a gateway to full frame? I think there's only one, right?
Only Fujifilm.
Only Fujifilm.
Sony up to a point, yeah. But Canon, no. It's a gateway. It's a tempter for the main event. Same with Nikon, really, I think.
Or you can consider Fujifilm was the gateway to medium format.
That's never going to happen because there's no route.
No,
the mounts are different. You can't migrate from X mount to GF mount.
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's no crossover. It's the same problem for Panasonic. You can't
Yeah.
migrate from Panasonic Lumix G to
Yep.
Lumix S. It's like a closed door. The mount's different, the lenses are different. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Canon and Nikon are in a fortunate position, and Sony,
Yeah.
that their APS-C models are directly compatible with the full frames.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So maybe it's no surprise they do it that way.
absolutely. Well, it's just interesting to see how many of you are jumping in to talk about this. But now let's go back to the spreadsheet that we talked about earlier, because now we're looking at market share and changes between the brands. So that is another kind of insight as well. So we already talked about the unit sales figure between the 23 and 24, and now we're looking at the market share. So now we flip the numbers a little bit, looking at the actual market share based on the unit sale. Don't forget, this does not reflect the actual market share, considering those who may already have the system, or already. So these figures are based completely on sales and sales only. So just based on this, if you
Not
look
users, not the number of users,
no, because the number of Micro Four Third users, for instance, could be way bigger than what the figures suggest, and because a lot of them are still using the gear and perhaps haven't bought into a new camera for a number of years, so we just don't know, for instance. So let's look at these figures now. And what troubling me at the moment, although we already talked about Canon hasn't really increased in sales number for between 23 and 24. And if you look at the market share, it actually lost a little bit. It lost by 7%, which is actually big for Canon. So I don't know. What do you think about it, Rod?
Well, maybe Canon's seen the figures just like you are, Jimmy. There's a new camera coming next Tuesday.
Yep, but that's a CD
I
camera.
don't think they could react that fast, no. But I think so. I think Canon has looked at Sony and thought, do you know what? Sony can make the same sensor into 4 different cameras. We'll do that as well. So I don't know what Canon's got. I think it's going to be something equivalent to Sony's ZV vlogging cameras.
Ooh.
I don't imagine it's going to set the world alight.
No.
We'll see.
It's a typical
We'll see.
Canon, right? Like you said, predictable.
Alas, yes, quite predictable. But we'll see. But I wouldn't hold your breath.
No.
Of course, I could be wrong. Could be amazing.
And interestingly, at number 2, Sony. Sony may have seen a relatively good, increase, having 16.5% increase in sales, but the overall market share actually only gained less than 3%. So it's just a normal thing for Sony. It's not. I don't think it's particularly good for them, considering the share hasn't really moved that much. Canon has lost over 7%, and Sony only gained less than 3%. So the increase hasn't really come from Canon. So it's interesting to see that Sony hasn't made a bigger gain.
It is, and I think there are two last comments we've got here. One from Nam and one from Chuck L. So first one, they would choose the system with the most affordable lenses, which I would think is Sony. Perhaps. The other thing about the Sony mount is you can get adapters for anything. Yep. And the Sony cameras are quite tolerant of vintage or third-party or dumb lenses in general. If you get a Sony, you can put any lens on it, you'll be fine. So it's a good platform for experimenting. Chuck L wants to know, could Canon be losing sales because people know they're logging out third-party lenses? That can't help. Help. It would be better if Canon's consumer lenses were a bit more consistent and the pro lenses didn't cost quite as much. But yeah, that does definitely not help. No.
And I think that.
I think.
Sorry.
I think at the consumer end of Canon's range, I think you have to like plastic a lot, because the tech is brilliant, but the cameras are quite plasticky. I feel
Yeah.
bad for Nikon because Nikon cameras do feel like they're properly made cameras. I know you're not so sure about the ZFC,
No.
but I've been impressed by others. But
Yeah.
there's no justice in this world, is there? So we have to
No.
accept that. But yeah, I think lens choice is important. With Sony, you've got a good choice because you've got Tamron, for example,
Yeah. Yeah.
which does make some really good Sony fit lenses for not much money.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I've used vintage lenses on my EOS R8 and it doesn't like it. I don't think the sensor is
Yeah.
as tolerant to off-axis light rays in the same way that the
Yeah.
Sony one is.
Yeah. I mean, I think so.
So
And I think
yeah,
another point about Chuck's comment and about third-party lenses, I think it really has some impacts on it. And to start with, and I think that lenses are expensive these days in general, like whether it's consumer or professional grade lenses. Third-party, like the likes of Chinese lenses in particular, they are coming in fast, every single month, and you got a lot of choices. And they are very, very affordable. Like it really helps if they produce, let's say, out of mount. It really does help people. Okay, man, I can get a camera body and a lens, or lens or two. Like within $1,000, for instance. And or 1,500. While they can't if they have to buy native in Canon only, and there's I have to stretch it out to $2,000 just to get a prime. It could make a big decisions there.
Yeah.
I think it does affect it.
It does. It does. And Angelo Flavor One has made a comment. I think he's responding to Chuck, but he says Canon may lose market because their cameras never push video. This is interesting because I know Sony has always pushed video very hard and Panasonic too, but Canon's video, I don't want to keep going on about the RX, it's not an exceptional camera, but it's actually better at video and autofocus than its rivals. But Canon doesn't seem to bother kind of hammering that message home. It's quite a cheap full-frame camera that's got extremely good autofocus and very good video. In full-frame market, most cameras can shoot 4K full width at 30 frames a second, but with 60 frames a second, you have to drop to an APS-C crop. But the R8 does that full width too. So I don't know why Canon hasn't pushed that, but maybe next Tuesday things will change. But yeah, I think Canon has not pushed video quite as well as it should have done.
No.
And I think perhaps it doesn't help that it does keep selling a lot of very old tech.
Yeah.
So, you can buy the Canon EOS R100 for not much money.
Yep.
But the tech is like 15 years old. I think it's 18. It's 24 megapixel sensor, but it's the old dual pixel CMOS AF, and it doesn't even work when you're filming in 4K, which also has a crop. So I think Canon doesn't help itself because it sells a lot of old technology cheap.
Yeah.
Which hurts its reputation, I think, sometimes.
I think so. I mean, just trying to rearrange this so everyone can see a little bit better here. It certainly is interesting. But now let's move on to the Nikon side. And so Nikon is in a similar boat as Sony, although it does a little bit better because it's over 4%, but it's still not huge because after this we're going to talk about Fuji. Fuji's got a significant gain in market share. So Nikon, I think the majority of the bump is coming from the retro cameras, and I suspect that the Z9 and the Z8 actually did much impact in terms of sales figures, but because majority of the sales, I presumably will come from the more consumer levels, so that means that it's going to be the Z6 or the Z6 II and also the ZF and ZFC. I think those are the big sales models basically for Nikon, and that helps the bump in there.
I think the Z8 has done well for Nikon, because everyone has quickly realised this is a very powerful camera, which is a cheaper proposition than similar cameras from rivals. But even then, as you say, it's not going to sell in huge numbers, I guess, because of the price. I think what hurts Nikon a bit is that the entry-level cameras don't have IBIS. The APS-C cameras don't have IBIS.
Yeah.
It doesn't help. And again, this is another reason why Micro Four Thirds would be a sad loss if it did just fade away, because IBIS is normal. Not for Panasonic, not every time, but certainly for our own system. Of course, you've got IBIS. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And if you go to an APS-C rival, you can't be sure you will get. I mean, with Canon, it's only the EOS R7 that has IBIS in its APS-C lineup, and that's a £1,300 camera.
Yeah.
So I think Nikon, I wouldn't say it neglects its APS-C cameras, but it doesn't put enough into them, I don't think, to make them compelling.
No. I mean,
the full frame cameras, they're a different story, different proposition. But the APS-C seems quite weak to me.
It is
compared to others.
Weird. It is weird to see Nikon and Canon, for that matter, behaves like that, because back in the DSLR times, they both have very compelling DSLR, the APS-C size range.
Yeah.
They both have great, like almost basically professional level APS-C cameras, and now when in mirrorless, they just simply don't have that.
No, I mean, somebody mentioned the D500, like dozens of comments back. You're not going to see another APS-C camera like that again, sadly.
Yeah.
Built like that fast, that professional. But it is as if the camera makers have kind of got together and said, you know what, we're going to get everyone onto full frame because there's more money there, and we'll gradually fizzle out the APS-C side. And if we all do it, we'll get away with it. I'm sure they haven't.
Oh dear. Well, that's certainly a very, very interesting insight. And but now let's have a let's put Fujifilm at last, because I want to move on to other things before we talk about Fujifilm, because Fujifilm's figures is simply ridiculous. And so now look at both Panasonic and OM System together, because when I say together, it's simply because they represent a format. They represent Micro Four Thirds. So Panasonic is losing just over 5%, even though the sales figures have increased. But like we said earlier in the stream, we talked about sales figures. A lot of the increase, we believe, is actually increase in the full frame side of it, is not the actual Micro Four Thirds side, because they haven't really produced many, well, in fact, any kind of Micro Four Thirds cameras, apart from really just the GX7 and G9 Mark II. And so there isn't many models there. And likewise for OM System, between 23 and 24, there aren't many new models coming up from OM System either. So Micro Four Thirds as a whole hasn't really got any product, to shout about or to make themselves visible to the consumers within those 2 years. So that's not a surprising thing to see when the markets actually drop based on sales. Remember, this is based on sale, not actually the user market share. So based on sales, their shares has dropped quite significantly if you consider the numbers, compared to all the other formats. But a lot of them has moved on to Fujifilm. I believe Fujifilm had, based on sales, again, has taken out a lot of the numbers from the Micro Four Thirds market. What do you see that, Rod, based on just the market share decrease from the Micro Four Thirds side of it?
I think it's all about marketing, isn't it? You get out what you put in, and development too. I think we're in an industry where people expect constant innovation. And I don't think, I think that's fair, but I think we're also in a time when that's no longer possible. And the camera you need has already been made. It's becoming increasingly difficult to sell new cameras to people who've already got cameras that do the job they want. I think you would have to start designing completely new product types.
Yeah.
You can't just keep making the same thing with minor enhancements and think people are going to keep buying it. That is, I think, the issue. So I think Panasonic, I think it's lost a bit of courage in a way. You know,
I think so.
I think it could have kept its Lumix G range going, but got convinced by everyone that nobody wanted MFT anymore. And I think with Lumix S full frame, the pace of development has just been a bit slow. It's all very competent, but there's just no real spark to it. So it's a sort of Panasonic cameras have become the sort of thing you buy. No disrespect to your spreadsheet, Jimmy, but the sort of camera you buy with a spreadsheet. How much can you get for how little money? Or buy a Panasonic. You wouldn't buy one for the love of it, would you? Which is, I think, where Fujifilm scores, because people do that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly relate to that, and but I just think that Panasonic is almost all but forgotten about MFT altogether. I mean, if you look at not just about camera body, I know the sales is based on camera sales, not lenses. So they haven't. If you look at the lenses, I think between 23 and 24, they literally only released the 9mm f1.7 one lens for that 2 years. So they haven't really actually have any lenses at all for MFT. I mean, they spent all the effort in developing the S-line lenses, but nothing on the MFT platform.
No, not really. I mean, Panasonic might say, "Oh, we made all the lenses you need. They're brilliant. We've already made them. You don't need to make any more." It's only partly true. They're not all brilliant.
No.
But I think that would be Panasonic's argument. I think they would say, Lumix G, we were there, we did that, but now it's time to move on.
Yeah, I think that's possibly the message. Although this is the message that may not be what everybody wants to hear, because of course we all treasure the MFT from Panasonic Lumix. They did produce some great cameras, like we said before, and I just hope that they will continue making them. Even at a slower pace. That's what I'm hoping for.
I think what's hurting everybody and everything, and the whole pricing structure, is this obsession with full frame sensors.
Yeah.
Because it creates a limitation on the kind of camera you can have, and the features it will have, and its portability and its cost. And I think in the past people understood that different sensor sizes were good for different things.
Yeah.
And we seem to be in an era when nobody believes that anymore, and everything has to be full frame. And that's really kind of cramped. It's kind of cramped the products available and cramped our own shooting styles, really.
Yeah.
Because I think for a certain type of photography, and certainly for a certain type of video, a smaller format is better. I mean, we were talking the other week about camcorders coming back.
Yeah.
They've got smaller sensors than MFT.
Oh yeah.
And nobody's complaining about them. But it's just this kind of sensor snobbery has kind of stifled the whole camera market, I think.
Yeah. I certainly think so. And just briefly mention about OM System and in this market share. I know the sales figures is not very encouraging, but like we said, this is based on unit sales. And between 23 and 24, OM System didn't really have any cameras at all apart from the OM1. So it's not surprising that they have lost quite a big chunk of it. But at the same time, during that 2 years, they did introduce a few lenses. So if they include sales figures from the lenses, that may be a very different story altogether. So it's interesting, like I said already, at the beginning of the stream, that these numbers doesn't really reflect a lot of things. It's just kind of like a thing that we see as a trend, thing that we can reflect on a little bit and talk about exactly what's going for the last few years. More than basically, this is representing everything that we see today in the market.
And I think the lenses would be the biggest loss if the format were to kind of disappear, because not all MFT lenses are spectacular, but there is, on other formats, there is nothing like the 8 to 25 f4 Pro.
Yep.
And there is nothing like the 40 to 150 f4, the retracting one.
Yep.
No, you can't get lenses with this range and of this quality on any other format. They don't exist. There are plenty of good full frame and APS-C telephotos, but they're nothing the size of the OM System 40 to 150. And, you could buy a 16 to 35 f4 on full frame,
Yep.
but the system 8 to 25, that's a 16 to 50 equivalent.
Yep.
Nobody makes those.
No.
So it would be a shame to lose those. So a lot of the innovation in Micro Four Thirds has been in the lenses, not necessarily the cameras.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly like a lot of the Micro Four Thirds lenses. In fact, I always consider them to be the best lenses I've ever owned, considering that I used both full frame APS-C and medium format in the past. And it's certainly some of them are spectacular for what it is. If you're considering the sensor size, the how much it can resolve and the sharpness coming out from it, it's just simply stunning. Yeah, so that aside, I think, it only tells part of the story, but it is obviously also showing us Micro Four Thirds in general is also shrinking, and a lot of the numbers has been taken over to, well, a slightly bigger brother, the Fujifilm. But before, like I said, I'm going to leave Fujifilm at last. Let's briefly talk about Ricoh Imaging, which includes Pentax. Even though their shares are less than 1%, very small in the market, but they do have a 2.7% increase in market share. Not a lot, but there's a little bit of increase.
So they sold 3 cameras last time, not 2. That's not fair. Sorry, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Well, I think perhaps this is the future of our own system too. And if Pentax Ricoh can make it work, then all the better, because heaven knows there's not a huge amount of innovation from that direction. But the fans don't mind; they don't care.
No.
We're Pentax fans. This is how cameras should be, and how they should work. You lot can do what you like. We're staying with this.
Yeah.
That's how we should be.
Well, I mean, like I said already, at the end of the day, these are businesses. Like as long as they're profitable, they're in business. So like we don't have to worry too much about it, even though the market may suggest otherwise.
Yeah, and I think if Home System can learn anything from Pentax, it's that they can go back 10 years, find an old camera, and give it a new name and start selling it again.
Yeah.
No, not mentioning the Pentax KF specifically.
No.
But if you can do it, do it.
Yeah. Greg actually just asked about, will the big price jump in the price of GRX4 reduce sales?
You'll have a lot of people complaining about it, but I don't think it will. I think people establish a connection in their minds between price and quality.
Yeah.
And if you could afford 1,000 for the 3, I think you can manage 1,300. Is it 1,300 for the 4? And you might even feel reassured that because it's more expensive, it must be even better. So it's this. So I think price is not a factor for every brand.
No. Fujifilm is a big example of that, right?
So this side's full screen. It's a Pentaxian. They're very good, very good. I can understand that completely. I think the DSLRs are great. I wish the lenses were a little less variable, but the cameras are exactly how DSLRs should be made. As for the GR, not a big fan, but I know a lot of people are. I'll leave it at that.
Right. And Chris also has an interesting thing here. And we should remember that Sony and Panasonic are electronic companies. Canon, Nikon, Olympus, and Fuji are traditional camera and optical company. That has to be important.
Yeah, you would hope so, wouldn't you? You'd hope that's a factor. Though we are talking about generational changes now, and I'm sure that I don't know that the companies have that same. I don't know that they carry forward their knowledge and expertise over the decades in quite that way.
No,
I'm not sure about that, but it is a good point. Yeah,
it's certainly. I mean, I personally think it's a good point because I think that perhaps something that the camera makers are also missing as well. Is trying to reassert themselves as a heritage company, not just about cameras, because the fact is, Leica has consistently made that point in the marketing material in the website. You know how long they have been in business, how many
Oh yeah,
famous
yeah,
photographers using the camera gear and things. So regardless where the target market is at this moment in time, but they continue to actually talk about it. It's almost like Ferrari. You know, we are motor
yeah,
industry.
yeah,
We always
yeah,
been a racing company. We have racing heritage. You know,
yeah. It's in our
so when
blood,
you
etc.
etc. Right? You know, so it's different to today's camera market. None of them actually talk about these things apart from Leica, which I think, like you said, Chris, I think people should pay more attention into these things. You know, yeah, a lot of these companies have traditions, has a lot of heritage and history behind it, and that must mean something. But like you said, Rod, also, it's a generational thing now. I mean, if I speak to my niece and my nephews, they're in the early teens and late teens. If we talked about buying cameras, they would say, "Oh, Sony." You know, that's what comes to their mind. Sony cameras. Unfortunately, that's the reality.
You should stop speaking to these people, Jimmy, until they recover their senses. Dismiss them from your circle.
Yeah,
Yeah, Greg makes the point that my association between price and perception of quality didn't seem to work for the OM3. I don't know. I don't know how well the OM3 is sold. I think it doesn't help the OM3 that the technology is very familiar.
yeah,
But I think possibly, just to take the argument to the extreme,
yeah,
Leica's pitch would be, this is how cameras should be made,
yeah,
and this is what it will cost. And
yes,
I think their audience is reassured by that. Whereas somebody like Panasonic will launch a camera, then 6 months later is £300 cheaper. And you know it's just a cost and marketing exercise.
yeah,
And because Leica doesn't have sales.
no,
It's this is what it costs to want it. So I think it's what's that saying? A race to the bottom. A lot of makers are competing on price and being a bit cunning with their marketing,
yeah,
and
yeah.
people get quite cynical about that. I think, or if
When,
or if you're somebody like me, you wait so long for the price to come down, you
yeah,
lose your chance to buy it. That's what happened to me with the Pen F. I
yeah,
thought
exactly.
when it's first launched, that'll get cheaper, that'll get cheaper, that'll get cheaper. Then it was gone.
Yeah.
So
I think the OM3 has the same kind of vibe as the Pen F. You know, like initially when it came out, I said, "Oh wow, what is so expensive this camera?" But that's how much it costs to make that bloody camera. You know, like the
yeah,
design
yeah.
and the whole camera itself is very difficult to make. And the OM3 is the same thing. It's using premium material, full metal body, fully weather sealed to the same level as the OM1. You know, like you are asking a lot for that camera there. And of course they have to charge accordingly. You know, you can't sell it for the OM5 price to having such a premium built. So you can't do it. I mean, I think people are seeing the
I,
same, almost experience the same thing as the Pen F.
if we're talking about market share and sales numbers, I think this particular attitude probably has an own system because they do promotions which they control quite carefully,
Yeah,
but they don't do this kind of layered price drops over the life of the product,
yeah,
to extract maximum revenue over the longest period of time. So that when an OM system camera is launched,
yeah,
you see the price and you know that's what the price is going to be for some time to come. And
yeah.
I think there will always be some part of the audience that thinks, oh, do you know what? I'll buy something cheaper. But, I think this is always going to happen to some degree. Or somebody will say, do you know what? I'm buying a Fujifilm because they dropped their prices, or a
Yeah.
Panasonic, or a Canon, or a Nikon.
You
So
know, like
the pricing game is quite toxic, really.
it is. Like, it's a very simple argument between the OM3. If you think OM3 is expensive, how do you think of the X100? You know, it's you know
Which you can't buy.
which you
Yeah,
can
no,
buy.
but quite.
Yeah,
I mean, Greg Phelan makes makes a point about the OM3 being a bit pricey for an everyday carry. OM5 too. It's cheap enough not to mollycoddle it.
yeah,
Still 20 million pixels, and it's weatherproof, and
yeah,
it's smaller. So I think you can't expect one camera to be everything to everyone. I wouldn't necessarily say an OM3 was an everyday carry, really. I'd get something cheaper and tougher. I'm not saying the OM3 isn't tough. Sorry, I mean I'd get something cheap. I'd get something cheaper and more expendable. I would worry about less.
Well, that depends. That depends on what the everyday carry means to the different people.
Yeah,
right?
it does. Yeah.
Some people the when they talk about EDC, the everyday carry is more like a fashion accessory. They just want to carry around their neck, and and some people the EDC is the one that they shoot every single day. They want to bash around. They don't care about getting scratched up and buffed up.
For me, an EDC is something I'll put in a coat pocket and leave it hung up in a garage till next time I go out and not worry about it.
Yeah.
But just know I've got it with me.
Yeah. For me, the EDC is the one that I will use for work every day. So that's the
So we all using the same phrase, but it means something different for all of us.
Yep, absolutely.
It's one of the dangers, isn't it?
It is. So now let's go back to the final topic, and is the Fujifilm increase, right? So we already, based on this spreadsheet here, we already established that Fujifilm was the biggest winner between 23 and 24. In terms of unit sales, it has a whopping 72% increase, jumping from 430,000 units to 740,000 units, closing the gap, almost reaching the Nikon level. So that's only one. Yeah, that's only one figure. These figures are relative.
These figures are relative. Maybe 23 was a terrible year for Fujifilm, and it's only just getting back to where it ought to have been. So
perhaps, but then that was only the sales figure. But when you look at the market share, that's even more astonishing, because if you look at the 23 market share based on sales units, unit sales. Fujifilm was almost half of what Nikon's was having. So 11.4% against 6%. So almost half. But if you look at the 24 figures, it's 12% against 9.2. So the gap is closing much faster. And if you look at the increase in year on year, and Fujifilm has gained 51.5%. And that, is the biggest of all of them. In this spreadsheet here, way bigger than anything combined, literally. And it's just crazy how to see Fujifilm make such a big gain on the market.
It is. I'm at a loss to explain it. I'm trying to think of what came out during that period, but that would probably be allowing for the XT5 and XT50, which probably represented quite a huge splash.
Yeah.
Because they went down pretty well, I think. So I think those were during that period.
Yeah. What about XS20? When did it came out? Was it 24?
I don't know how well. Yeah, the XS20 would have been in those figures, but I don't know how well that sold, because people tend not to talk about it very much. I mean, you get a sense of how much interest cameras have from what's on YouTube and what's on Instagram and all the rest. And the XS20 doesn't seem to come up very much. But then again, what these social media algorithms are like. They show you more of what you look at. Yeah, so they're not really a proper thermometer of what people are interested in. Yeah. So it's, it's difficult.
It is.
It's difficult, but I can't explain that gain. It's interesting.
No, it certainly is interesting. Like I said already, just a few moments ago, I think that whatever happened, I'm pretty sure all the executives in all the camera companies can look in these figures. How on earth did Fujifilm make those numbers? What exactly they did in terms of the cameras and designs can attract so many people, and what can we do better to combat that? I'm pretty sure everyone is reacting to it. In fact, like I said, this is last year's figures compared to the year before that. It doesn't reflect what's happening this year.
I will need to look up when the XT50 came out. Yeah. But if you look at that and the XT5, 40 million pixels for that money, that's going to impress a lot of people. Regardless of what you or I or people watching this might think about that, it's an impressive statistic that people can't help noticing. So I think they may have made a difference. But I think Fujifilm's upward trajectory is just inevitable, really, at the moment in the current market.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, I think that even though these are last year's figures, and I think the trend is going to continue because they obviously late last year they released the XM5, and this year they have the X half, and both proven to be also very, very popular.
Well, yeah.
Despite people may think they're crap cameras, but then like they are selling like hotcakes.
But they're affordable.
Yes.
They're cameras you might want that you can also afford. Whatever we here might think of them, the pricing and the desirability line up.
Yeah.
Which is not always the case with other brands.
No, certainly not. So like it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because we already see a lot of reacting strategies coming from some brands. OM System, for instance, this year they released 2 retro cameras, like the OM3 and the OM5 Mark II, which is not accounted for these numbers because these will come out next year. And so people are obviously reacting to it, and then the hypes surrounding retro cameras and whatever happening around Fujifilm, the aurora, that Fujifilm has set out and for the past few years. And Nikon, obviously, they also had the ZF and ZF-C, which is actually partly already included in the sales numbers here because they're not new cameras anymore. Who knows? If Nikon's going to release ZF-C Mark II at some point next year, perhaps. We don't know yet. And Sony and Canon, I don't think they have any strategy or any thinking, in terms of making any sort of retro cameras.
No, all right,
I'm hoping Canon will make an AE1 kind of equivalent to it at some point, but I don't think they will. Despite what rumors are kind of bubbling around, saying that they should make one, or patents already been filing, whatever. I just don't see them happening. Unfortunately,
Canon's innovation is always more forward-looking.
Yeah,
never backwards. So. Of course, famous last words, I'm almost certainly wrong, but everything Canon does is either based on what people want now or what they think they might want in the future. So new tech, new product types.
Yeah. And it's certainly interesting, like to see how this play out in the next year or two, and how many of these figures would change over time, in line with all the new models that they release in this year and also next year, how everything will play out in the next few years. Because we all know that trend is a trend. It will end at some point, like that means the retro trend could potentially end in the next year or two when there's a new trend coming out, and who knows, it doesn't last forever. Nothing lasts forever. So like at the moment,
no.
Pretty sure Fujifilm is catching the wave in the right wave and releasing the right products for the right people, and it's just making it for them at the moment. And it's hard to tell what will happen in the next few years for sure. Maybe people suddenly will change. Oh, I want something futuristic. There's something that Canon has always been doing, some futuristic looking cameras that not necessarily everybody's taste. And then, but you never know. Suddenly they might just caught on.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think certain brands play the percentages, and that's pretty apparent, but some of them do things sort of just outside the box. Yeah. And I think it's the ones that are doing things outside the box that are likely to ride a trend. Whether it'll be long-term success or not, I don't know. But I mean, if a company like Fujifilm makes the X half, they don't have to sell a lot of X halves. It's already done its job by making people notice the brand. And even if they don't buy the X half, they might think, oh, no, not for me, but maybe I'll get an XT50 or maybe an XE3 because they look good. So it's just all good for the brand, this kind of innovation and weird stuff.
It's certainly interesting, just looking the whole kind of, not just about camera, but retro thing across the entire globe in any industry now, because I think everybody is feeling a little bit nostalgia these days, especially after what's happening around the world.
It's a curious thing that the digital revolution has brought the past back.
Yeah.
So we can listen to recordings of bands we used to like when we were kids, and you don't have to try and find old vinyl records in shops anymore. So the digitization of music, photography, and all sorts of other content has brought the past right back into the present,
Yeah.
and I think we can appreciate past stuff more than we could have done before, because the quality is back.
I think so, and also I think it's a generational thing as well, and a lot of the people who grew up, knowing those models and knowing those products in the past that they
Yeah.
couldn't afford, for instance, and now in the digital time when most of them are grown-ups and also having a little bit of spare cash, and when they see something that is kind of retro looking, that's kind of reminded them of their childhood or something that their hero products in the past, and suddenly
When
I
things
could
were
get something.
simpler.
Yeah.
I think people do think that way, think, oh, the past was simpler. Of course it wasn't, but they like to think that. But yeah, who knows what the next trend will be. It'd be lovely if it is back to basics, wouldn't it? But I can't quite see that happening. But it would be wonderful if it did. But I just think in today's market, you need to excite people. You can't just sell them cost-effective, efficient products.
No.
You have to inspire people.
It certainly is. I mean, I think we come to the point that cameras are being so good already, like we said, that you can do literally 99.9% of things that a photographer needs, as a camera. I think they need something that is not just about practicality. They're not just about functional. They need to have that emotional kind of boost, when it comes to looking at the camera.
And we always get so many comments about the new Pen F.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'd say to that is, get the old one. It's fine. I've got the original, and it's fine. I wouldn't use it for certain jobs, but for most of the stuff I do, I don't need a new one. I think Olympus System should just start making it again, and that'd be fine.
That's some rot.
It's all it needs to do, or just restart production in a series of special editions with leather half cases, maybe with 2 or 3 prime lenses in a bundle. Maybe call it something different, like the Pen F A or Pen F B, with a couple of minor changes. But I don't think, for the kind of person who would like a Pen F, that the technology really needs to change.
No.
Which might sound a very strange thing to say, but it's not an old camera. If for somebody who likes that style of camera and that feel, the technology inside the original Pen F is fine.
Yeah.
Maybe improve the IBIS. So I'm not sure the IBIS is quite as good as more modern cameras. No, but I think the sensor's fine. The styling's fine.
Yeah, I think IBIS is pretty good. I mean, like, the only thing that I would possibly change is give me a different AF. It's not that it's particularly bad, but I think in terms of the contrast detect AF is definitely not as snappy as the EM10 Mark IV. Because it's a newer generation of AF. So I needed a new AF, but other than that, I'm happy with the whole Pen F thing.
Yeah, well, my IBIS is quite audible, which we probably didn't notice at the time, but it does suggest to me it's not exactly the latest thing. Right. But I'd be quite happy with the Pen F Mark II that just had a better EVF, please. Improve the IBIS, and maybe do something a bit creative with the bundles.
Yeah.
So I've got a half case for my Pen F, and it's very nice.
Ooh, fancy.
Makes it look good. Yeah.
But have you checked the video spec of the Pen F? It's interesting because you can actually shoot 480p video.
Well,
in a 4x3 format.
I would just say, don't buy it for the video. It doesn't have to do everything. Yeah. If get the Pen F for the nostalgia and the stills and the feel and the handling. If you want to shoot video, get a Pocket 3 or some other home system camera. Don't try and make the Pen F2 be everything, because that's just not going to happen.
When I say video, is only because there's a new trend. I don't know anyone knows.
Oh yeah, I mean, open gates.
Probably not something about video per se for professional use, but for a lot of hipsters and young
Yeah,
people who
4
like
to
the
3.
who like the point and shoot cameras,
Yep.
and also the X100 crowd, they are now looking at lo-fi videos.
Well,
So,
can
you know,
can
the
I
PenF
just throw my
4x3 480p format, you know, it's a perfect thing. It can
go back
combine
to
with the,
VG?
you can
We go back
combine
to
with the color
VGA.
mode dial. You can combine the color dial to create some really quirky color profile for that nostalgia feel.
The only current trend I do object to is old point and shoots,
Yeah,
because I used to test these cameras, and these old point and shoot cameras with 1/2.3 sensors,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
not
yeah.
good. They are
Yeah.
not good at all. They look good to be seen with, but
Yeah.
don't use them for anything, please.
No, no. Okay, right. It's certainly been interesting. Thank you. I think a lot of people has been contributing, and yeah, we're sorry we haven't got time to go through every single one comments there, but please continue filling the comments in the comment section below, and also like I want to hear from your reflection on what we said today, and also for those who can't join us today live, and please be sure that you can actually listen to our podcast in the YouTube music app, and also we watch this whole series here and listen to our conversations and just talk about photography in general, not just about gear, but also about photography and other genres of photography. And like I said, like we said about 2 months ago, I'm gonna bring in some new guests, to have a discussion with different photography. And we currently trying to build up a list of people that we want to interview and showcasing their work, and hopefully to get some inspiration from them, not only for you guys but also for me and for Rod as well. So we always like to try out new things and look at different people's work and trying to get some inspiration from them as well. So hopefully that will be a more interesting, artistically and educational for a lot of photographers. Just to recap everything that we just talked about today, based on the numbers that we're seeing right now, is that I think the overall market is seems to be healthy, because if you look at the total sales, unit sales number has gone up by almost 14%. So it's certainly encouraging to see that numbers going up, not down. Otherwise, we'll be even more worried if the numbers going down instead of go the other way. But it looks like the numbers going up, so that's a good sign. It's now just depending on how these companies are going to do in the future, and will be interesting to see exactly what's going on this year in 25 and also next year in 26, to see what the new trend is, what's going to be like in the next few years when it comes to camera designs. Not so much about spec these days, right, Rod? We not really care about spec too much now. They seem to be the same. We just don't need faster burst rate, we don't need high resolution, we don't need a lot of AI stuff, right?
If you're a real retro fan and you like the retro look, and you
Yeah.
use software like Silver FX or DxO Film Pack to get that vintage look, you'd be fine. You'd be fine with the old Olympus 12 megapixel sensor, because all of these techniques in software, they take away so much of the resolution and dynamic range and everything else
Yeah.
that we kind of look for today. But it turns out we don't care. We just want the look.
Yeah.
So we're obsessing about megapixels, dynamic range, ISOs, but really what we actually want is the look.
Yeah.
And we obsess about camera specifications, but what we really want is something we like to look at and to hold and to use.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So logic has its place, but really
yeah.
we're driven by our hearts, not our heads, I think, most of the time.
And that's for everything, right? Not just cameras.
Yeah. With me, it's because my head doesn't work that well, so it has to be my heart.
Right, okay, well, it's been good fun chat today. I think that you guys found the same thing as well, and a little bit of entertainment. Hopefully it's not too heated about the whole discussions. I'm sure it is not, because judging from the comments I can read right now, it seems to be quite a friendly discussions out there, so that's very good. But yeah, it's good to hear from you guys. If you guys have any other thoughts about today's chat, about the numbers, about your concerns about certain brands and products. I would like to hear from you. Please do leave some comment down below. And also, we're going to bring you some other new chats in the forthcoming futures. And like I said, we're also going to bring in some new guests and hopefully to discuss about their photography, different type of genre of photography. If there are anything specific that you want us to talk about, like for instance, if you're interested in street photography or product photography or landscape photography, please let us know in the comment section below. We're trying to find photographers who are very masterful and very successful in those categories, and we're bringing in and trying to talk about their photography and the journey, and hopefully that will be an inspirational kind of content for you guys to see and read. Okay. So, in the meantime, I think that we're going to have to say goodbye. I think it's been 2 hours for our run. So, it's our normal 2 hours chat, which is a bit long for a podcast. But yeah, we seem to be getting some consistent listeners. So, that's quite good. So, thank you for all the support so far. And I'm pretty sure we're going to continue this series for a fairly long time until we can't talk anymore.
That'll be the day.
That'll be the day. That'll be the day. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, if you like this stream, and don't forget to give us a thumb. And also check out all our bios and Rod got some great articles in his website. Everything's in the description below. Also, for those in the UK, I know it's a bit late, maybe last minute notice. I am also running a photo workshop with OM System in Southampton this Saturday. So there is 2 sessions that I think one session is almost sold out already. There's still some spaces left on the afternoon session. So yep, you can go into the LCE London Camera Exchange website to go onto the event page. You can see the detail there. I think it's also listed on the OM System page as well. I'm not entirely sure, but be sure to check out. That if you're interested, please join me, and also I will see you there if you can. If not, and everybody have a good day, and we'll see you next week. Okay, guys, I'll see you all very soon, and bye for now. Bye.